I never imagined that one day I would be standing in my own apartment with my keys in hand. I couldn't resist grinning. I had finally done it after years of living in a small rented apartment and squeezing money, giving up all small comforts. My name was Kimberly Sanders, and I own a house. While my younger sister, Jessica, lived off of their largest by bouncing from lover to boyfriend, people always told me that I was the responsible one in the family. I saved as much money as I could while working my way up at Thompson and Associates. I knew better than our mother, who constantly claimed that Jessica was just discovering who she was. The golden child who could do no wrong was who she had always been. This is the kitchen, I told myself as I brushed my fingers over the granite worktop. It was mine, all mine, yet it wasn't fancy. It would be difficult to make the mortgage payments, but I had done all the math. I had created budget plans, spreadsheets, everything. As Jessica loves to say, I am the responsible one, the planner, and the boring one. I made the decision to have a modest housewarming celebration for a select group of my old school classmates and some close coworkers. I knew better than to expect much, but I invited Mom and Jessica as well. "Oh, honey, I'm just so busy with work this weekend," was Mom's expected response. "You are aware of the situation." Jessica made no attempt to respond. Normal. The first person to come was Sarah from accounting. She handed me a bottle of wine and said, "Kim, this place is amazing. You actually did it." My pals came one by one. My coworker Michael arrived with a cheese dish, and my high school friends Tom and Rachel brought a houseplant. There was a lot of discussion and laughing in the flat, the type that makes a new place seem like home. "To Kim," said Tom, lifting his glass that night, who proved that hard work and determination still pay off. Everyone applauded, and my eyes began to flood up with tears. My selective family was present to celebrate my accomplishment. It hurt a bit to be without Mom and Jessica, but I was accustomed to it. Their interest in one another had always outweighed their interest in me. 2 weeks after my housewarming celebration, on a calm Sunday afternoon, the doorbell rang. I had no expectations. I was doing some basic cleaning around the flat, while still sporting my old sweatpants and a sloppy hairstyle. My heart skipped a beat when I opened the door. Mom and Jessica were standing there, both sporting the faces I was all too acquainted with. "Well, aren't you going to invite us in?" With her high-end handbag swinging on her arm, Mom shoved by me. Jessica trailed behind, sporting sunglasses indoors like a wanted star. I managed to remark, "I wasn't expecting you," while remaining near the open door. Mom was in my kitchen already, opening drawers and cabinets as if she owned the space. "You haven't even begun preparing supper, Kimberly. It's 4 o'clock already," Mom said. "How could I start dinner when I didn't know you were coming?" After shutting the door, I trailed after her. I never imagined that one day I would be standing in my own apartment with my keys in hand. I couldn't resist grinning. I had finally done it after years of living in a small rented apartment and squeezing money, giving up all small comforts. My name was Kimberly Sanders, and I own a house. While my younger sister, Jessica, lived off of their largest by bouncing from lover to boyfriend, people always told me that I was the responsible one in the family. I saved as much money as I could while working my way up at Thompson and Associates. I knew better than our mother, who constantly claimed that Jessica was just discovering who she was. The golden child who could do no wrong was who she had always been. This is the kitchen, I told myself as I brushed my fingers over the granite worktop. It was mine, all mine, yet it wasn't fancy. It would be difficult to make the mortgage payments, but I had done all the math. I had created budget plans, spreadsheets, everything. As Jessica loves to say, I am the responsible one, the planner, and the boring one. I made the decision to have a modest housewarming celebration for a select group of my old school classmates and some close coworkers. I knew better than to expect much, but I invited Mom and Jessica as well. "Oh, honey, I'm just so busy with work this weekend," was Mom's expected response. "You are aware of the situation." Jessica made no attempt to respond. Normal. The first person to come was Sarah from accounting. She handed me a bottle of wine and said, "Kim, this place is amazing. You actually did it." My pals came one by one. My coworker Michael arrived with a cheese dish, and my high school friends Tom and Rachel brought a houseplant. There was a lot of discussion and laughing in the flat, the type that makes a new place seem like home. "To Kim," said Tom, lifting his glass that night, "who proved that hard work and determination still pay off." Everyone applauded, and my eyes began to flood up with tears. My selective family was present to celebrate my accomplishment. It hurt a bit to be without Mom and Jessica, but I was accustomed to it. Their interest in one another had always outweighed their interest in me. 2 weeks after my housewarming celebration, on a calm Sunday afternoon, the doorbell rang. I had no expectations. I was doing some basic cleaning around the flat, while still sporting my old sweatpants and a sloppy hairstyle. My heart skipped a beat when I opened the door. Mom and Jessica were standing there, both sporting the faces I was all too acquainted with. "Well, aren't you going to invite us in?" With her high-end handbag swinging on her arm, Mom shoved by me. Jessica trailed behind, sporting sunglasses indoors like a wanted star. I managed to remark, "I wasn't expecting you," while remaining near the open door. Mom was in my kitchen already, opening drawers and cabinets as if she owned the space. "You haven't even begun preparing supper, Kimberly. It's 4 o'clock already," Mom said. "How could I start dinner when I didn't know you were coming?" After shutting the door, I trailed after her. "You could have called first." I was always made to feel 2 inches taller by her dismissive sweep of her hand. "You've never been able to handle home chores. You were constantly too preoccupied with your nose in those accounting books to pay attention to what I attempted to teach you." Jessica, meantime, was pacing my flat as if she were a real estate agent doing an inspection. She continued to grumble to herself and shake her head while tracing my walls with her fingertips and looking into each room. "I'll make some tea," I said, attempting to seem kind in spite of the surprise attack. Jessica eventually took a seat at my kitchen table as I filled the kettle. She removed her sunglasses and gave me that look she gives me when she wants something. Her tone typically preceded bad news. "This is actually a nice place, Kim," she added. "The location is perfect, right in the center of everything." I nervously said, "Thanks," and placed 3 cups out. Mom continued to criticize my kitchen's organization, but I had long since learned to ignore her. Jessica then moved her finger over the table's edge. "I have some updates. I broke up with Brad. He asked me to begin making rent payments. Is it not unbelievable? After spending half a year together." Biting my lip, I concentrated on pouring the drink. "So anyhow," Jessica went on, "it goes without saying that I had to leave his apartment. Additionally, you are aware of the high cost of rent these days." For impact, she hesitated. "I was thinking I could stay here with you for a few months." Halfway to the table, the cup I was holding froze. "What?" "Just for a little while. 3 months tops until I find a job and get back on my feet." I said, "I don't think that's a good idea," and put the cup down gently. "I just moved in myself, and I really need my space." "Kimberly." Like a dagger, Mom's words sliced through the kitchen. "How can you be so self-centered? Your sibling is experiencing hardship. You're sitting here in your lovely new apartment by yourself, refusing to help your own sister, and she has nowhere to go and no money." I firmly said, "Mom, Jessica can stay with you," while attempting to maintain a steady tone. "Your house has plenty of space." "Oh my God, Kim." Before Mom could reply, Jessica cut in. She gave a theatrical roll of her eyes. "Have you seen Mom's house? There are just elderly folks strolling their dogs and retiring to bed around 8 o'clock, making it resemble a retirement community." I began to say, "It's a perfectly nice neighborhood," but Jessica didn't continue. "Your place is right in the center of everything," she said, making sweeping gestures toward my windows. "I can genuinely network and meet people at clubs, pubs, and stores. If I'm stuck in the suburbs, how am I going to rebuild my life? You're acting really self-centered." Mom added, "After everything we've done for you." For what seemed like hours, they tag-teamed me. Jessica would cry and dab at her eyes with a tissue when I kept my ground. Mom would go on another rant about family loyalty if that didn't work. They moved back and forth like a practice game of tennis. Your father would be so disappointed in you. Mom, using her nuclear option, eventually stated. He instilled in you girls the value of taking care of one another. If he could see you today, abandoning your own sister, how would he feel? I was broken by that strike. Mom understood just how to use Dad's memories as a weapon. He had died 5 years earlier. Like water draining from a bathtub, I felt the fight leave me. I heard myself mutter, "Fine," but the word tasted unpleasant. For 3 months, that's all. Really? Inexplicably, Jessica's weeping stopped. Oh my God, thank you, thank you, thank you. I attempted to sound forceful when I said, but there are conditions. You have 3 months to locate a job, save money, and move out. I mean it. Of course, of course. She sprang to her feet and embraced me. There is no better sister than you. I'll begin looking for a job tomorrow. I did not return her hug. Instead, I stood rigidly in it. Like a chess player who had just checkmated her opponent, Mom seemed smugly content. Jessica arrived the following night with a number of shopping bags and 3 huge luggage. She was bursting through my front door before I had even had time to think about what I had committed to. So, where's my room? She looked around hopefully as she pushed her bags down my hallway. She paused at the entrance to my bedroom and looked in. This one is great. The scenery is breathtaking. That's my room, I blurted out. You'll be staying in the guest bedroom, or you can go back to Mom's. She pouted without continuing to debate. Her shoulders drooped in apparent despair as I watched her wheel her bags into the smaller bedroom. I prepared spaghetti for supper the first night for both of us. I summoned Jessica to the kitchen table while she was still organizing her belongings in the guest room and griping about the little closet. I reasoned that it would be wise to establish ground rules at once. As she twirled spaghetti around her fork, I remarked, "Okay, so if we're going to live together, we need to establish some boundaries. First, don't make a lot of noise. The walls here aren't very thick, and I have to get up early for work." "Fine, fine," she said as she bit into a noodle mouthful. "This is really good, by the way." Secondly, we must exercise caution when using utilities, so no showers lasting an hour. I glared at her, recalling our adolescent days and Mom's water expenses. And remember to turn off lights when you leave rooms. "I'm not 12 anymore, Kim," said Jessica. "I know how to flip a light switch," I said. And most importantly, I said, disregarding her remark, no guests without first asking me. I need to know who is entering and departing from my flat. Jessica set down her fork and gave me a direct look. "Kim, I get it. Actually, I want to show you that I've changed, even though I know I haven't always been trustworthy in the past. Before you know it, I'll get a job, save money, and get out of your hair." She appeared honest, more so than I had seen her in a long time. I experienced hope for the first time since the start of this whole mess. Perhaps she had matured after all. This could work. Unexpectedly, the first week went smoothly. Jessica would be getting ready for her alleged job interviews as I would depart for work early in the morning. She even began preparing supper. Nothing special, but it was good to have a hot meal and a tidy kitchen when she got home. "How was the interview today?" "Over a really good chicken stir-fry she had prepared one evening," I inquired. "Really good," she said animatedly, referring to a downtown marketing business. "They said they'd call me back next week." This trend persisted for around 2 weeks. When I returned home, the flat was clean, supper was prepared, and Jessica was bursting with anecdotes about the many businesses she had visited. I began to believe that my sister could have finally grown up. Then things began to shift. I started by seeing that the sink was overflowing with dishes. Then there was no more cooking. The flat was much as I'd left it that morning, if not worse, and Jessica was stretched out on my couch, browsing through her phone. She was in the same posture when I left her that morning when I returned to work one evening after an especially demanding workday. The one distinction was that she had left the takeaway containers on my coffee table and had seemingly simply eaten for herself. While she kept browsing on her phone, I had to prepare dinner. As though drawn by the aroma, she went into the kitchen when the supper was done. Trying to speak at a level voice, I added Jessica. I thought we agreed to share the household responsibilities. She moaned, "Oh, I'm just so tired of cooking and cleaning," as she munched on the stir-fry I had prepared. "It's really dull." How did today's stop hunting go? With a mouthful of food, she shrugged. I attended an additional interview. 5 years of experience is what they're looking for in an entry-level role. Is that not unbelievable? Did you apply anyway? No way, she angrily said. I'm not going to waste my time on companies with ridiculous requirements like that. After a month of our temporary living arrangement, I no longer had any hope that Jessica would change. Her constant partying had turned my place into a crash pad. Throughout the day when I was at work, the sound of her phone talks reverberated through the walls. My neighbors complained about the noise, so I knew. I heard her say, "Sorry, can't talk now," one morning as I was getting ready for work. Yes, I'm completely hungover. My sister is still here now. I am aware of how stiff she is. She stumbled in at 2:00 a.m. that night, smelling of cigarettes and booze. I, of course, was awake. With her shambling around the flat like an inebriated elephant, how could I sleep? She was still dressed from the previous evening when she came out of her room at midday the next day. "Kim," she purred, "you must visit the drugstore. Here, I'm dying." I prepared the electrolyte-containing hangover tablets, you know. Advil and water are available in the kitchen. She groaned, "You're the worst," as she collapsed on my couch. A good sister would help. At last, I'd had enough. I gave Mom a call that night. I said, "Mom, you need to talk to Jessica," as soon as she answered the phone. "She isn't even looking for work. She sleeps all day and goes out to parties every night." "Oh, Kimberly," Mom said, interrupting in the same contemptuous manner. "You're exaggerating a minor issue. She needs time to come to her senses. At her age, you were always so serious. You've never known how to enjoy yourself." The condition of the residence was deteriorating daily, with clothing all over the place, empty wine bottles rolling about on the floor, and dirty dishes growing things I didn't want to identify. Jessica's room had turned into a biohazard zone. On the few occasions I attempted to clean it, I discovered moldy coffee mugs buried behind laundry mounds. "Jessica," I called out to her one night when she was home. "This must end. You are not seeking employment. You are not assisting with household chores and your room." She became agitated after that. I heard her quickly calling her phone after she barged into her room and closed the door. My phone rang 20 minutes later. "Mom." Before I could even say hi, Kimberly screamed, "You have no right to bother your sister." She phoned me in tears. "Mom, you don't understand. You're not understanding. You're always criticizing her even though she's doing her hardest. I'm a better parent than this." In this way, 2 months passed slowly. The cost of my utilities has almost doubled. Even when she wasn't home, Jessica turned on the air conditioner, left all the lights on, and had hour-long baths. She ate the groceries I was spending a fortune on without my help. Unless I cleaned them myself, the kitchen was always a disaster with dishes stacked high. Jessica's social life, meanwhile, was flourishing. She always dressed for clubs, met new groups of people, and moved effortlessly in and out of the flat at all hours. She would help herself to whatever she could find, including my food, alcohol, and amenities. However, work? Apparently, she was beneath that. It took place on Thursday. I was startled out of a deep slumber by the sound of keys jangling and inebriated laughter. At 3:27 a.m., I glanced at my bedside clock. Jessica made another late-night entry, but this time there was a difference. 2 voices could be heard. I put on my robe and went into the corridor. I froze in my steps at the image that met my eyes. Jessica was there, smudged with lipstick and barely upright, but she wasn't alone herself. Her waist was encircled by an arm belonging to a man I had never seen. Despite the summer heat, he was tall, wore a leather jacket, and had the smile that I had seen on far too many of Jessica's previous lovers. "Oh, hey, Kim," Jessica said in a jumbled voice. "This is Rick. Isn't he attractive?" After giving me a snide look, Rick resumed nuzzling Jessica's neck. Right there in my hallway, they began making out while utterly disregarding me. "Jessica," I growled. "What is he doing here?" Jessica smiled at me as if she were going to break the greatest news ever as they came up for air. "Rick will remain in my room with us. He was expelled by his roommate. Is it not unbelievable?" Like a pail of freezing water, the shock struck me. Absolutely not. For the first time, Rick said, "Don't be such a buzzkill," in a haughty tone. "Your sister said it wouldn't be a problem." Rick's hands began to stray in ways that made me want to bleach my eyes as they resumed their kissing. "Stop it." "Rick, you have to go," I yelled. Jessica pulled away from Rick's expression. "Not at all. He will remain with me. I live in this flat." I tried to remain cool, but my voice raised. "You don't get to move in random guys without my permission." "You're such trash." Jessica's cheeks flushed as she yelled. "You've always been jealous of my relationships." That was it. My patience's final thread broke. I whispered, "Get out," in a deadly low voice. "You too. Now, you can't kick me out." Jessica staggered a little. "I live here." "No, you don't." I went to her room and went to the closet to get her baggage. "You were only meant to be here for a short time. You were meant to be seeking employment. You were meant to be making an effort. Gather your belongings." Jessica gave me a long look before launching into a flurry of activity. She flung clothing and possessions into her luggage carelessly after yanking out drawers and her wardrobe. Rick watched her pack from the doorway. She packed everything she could into her 3 bags in 15 minutes, slamming them closed so hard I was afraid the zippers would snap. Her fingers were white with rage as she grasped the handles. "All right, retain your dumb apartment," she said, pulling her bags to the door. "What a terrible sister you are. You have always been awful. I despise you." She threw every expletive she knew at me as she rushed out, Rick following. My photos shook on the walls when the door banged so forcefully. With my hands trembling, I stood in the unexpected quiet. My phone didn't ring until precisely 58 minutes had passed. The screen showed Mom's name. Without introducing herself, she said, "How dare you throw your sister out in the middle of the night?" She could have been hurt. I ended the call. After that, I switched off my phone entirely. After Jessica departed, my flat was nearly silent. I thoroughly cleaned everything throughout the first few days. Jessica had left a path of devastation that required careful consideration. I discovered wine stains on the carpet, moldy dishes beneath her bed, and enigmatic sticky patches on every surface in the guest room. I could have filled a small dump with the waste bags I filled. I advised the locksmith, better safe than sorry, when he arrived to replace the locks. As he fitted the new lock, he nodded affirmatively without asking any questions. It felt liberating to have the new keys in my hand. For the first time in years, I chose to enjoy my birthday at home in my freshly cleaned, Jessica-free house. I invited my closest coworkers, some old school acquaintances, and a couple of relatives from Dad's side of the family, who were aware of Mom and Jessica's predicament. I purposely did not extend an invitation to any of them. One day was what I want. Just one day without any trouble. The celebration got off to a great start. Accounting Sarah brought her renowned chocolate cake. A bottle of my favorite wine was sent by Tom and Rachel. To commemorate my reclaimed space, as my cousin M phrased it with a knowing smile, she brought me a lovely houseplant. When the doorbell rang, we were all in the living room, laughing and telling stories. My heart fell. That forceful ring was familiar to me. Mom was indeed there when I opened the door. Like a thundercloud, she came into my flat and looked around at my friends and family. Without even saying happy birthday, she took up her position in the center of the room and started performing. I can't believe you're all here celebrating with her, she told her fellow guests, when she threw her own sister out onto the street in the middle of the night. There was silence in the room. My friends looked at each other uncomfortably. I said, "Mom, now isn't the time." She insisted, "When is the time? When should we talk about how callous and vicious you've become? It's terrible for your dear sister." Jessica had acted badly, I answered, attempting to speak steadily. Selfish Mom's voice became louder as she exploited my generosity. "You are exactly that. You've become a cold-hearted, self-centered lady. Was this what you were hoping for? To live in your luxurious apartment alone while your sister faces hardships?" Something broke inside of me. Maybe if you'd spent less time coddling Jessica and more time actually parenting her, she wouldn't be struggling. The quiet room reverberated with the sound of her hand cracking on my cheek. I staggered backward from the power of the smack, my palm shooting to my face in surprise. "Ungrateful trash." Crash. Her voice was poisonous as she spit. "You're no daughter of mine." She slammed the door behind her as she turned and raced out. The ensuing hush was deafening. Despite my strenuous efforts to suppress the tears, I stood still, my cheeks scorching. When I eventually broke down, Emma was the first to get up and put her arms around me. The harm was done, but my other visitors rallied around to provide consolation and encouragement. The festive mood was disrupted, and a pall of uncomfortable anxiety took its place. In less than 5 minutes, I am the eldest of 3 children, and my name is Erica. My mother works part-time at a trade company, while my father owns his own business. Then there are my twins, Charlie and Lisa, who are 6 years my junior. In our parents' view, they were always the perfect kids, the ones who could do no wrong. My position in the household drastically shifted once the twins were born. In addition to being their older sister, I also served as their personal assistant, housekeeper, and living nanny. I was picking up the twins from school, helping them with their schoolwork, and bringing them to different after-school events while other students my age were having a good time. I was also in charge of the house. I cooked, cleaned, went food shopping, and did everything else. Lisa and Charlie, meanwhile, did nothing. As if it were their work, they would return home, scatter their bags wherever they wanted, and leave a path of chaos in their wake. When I was around 15, I eventually plucked up the confidence to question my parents about this arrangement one really annoying day. During supper, I tried to speak steadily and said, "Mom, Dad, why am I the only one who has to do all the housework? Charlie and Lisa are never helpful." I felt like I was being silly for even asking, and Mom gave me that look after setting down her fork. "That's simply the way it is with families, honey. The oldest child is always responsible for more." "But that isn't accurate," I objected. "I visited the homes of Sarah and Jessica, and their families divide the household chores equally among all the children." Mom's expression hardened as she said, "Those families are raising their children wrong. Is that the purpose of this? Have your pals been providing you with ideas?" Across the table, the twins smirked at each other. When I got into trouble, they adored it. I made an effort to speak with Lisa and Charlie personally later that week about doing more to help. "Why don't any of you ever assist with housework?" As we worked on their assignment, I asked them. Lisa gave an eye roll. "Mom thinks we should concentrate on our activities and education. That is our primary goal." Charlie said with a smug smile, "Yeah. You are expected to accomplish all of that. Mom said so. It was more than simply duties, though." The twins appeared to enjoy complicating my life. They intentionally damaged items or messed up rooms I had just cleaned, then blamed me for it. They would occasionally tell lies to our parents, saying I hadn't forgotten to purchase them something they had requested, or that I hadn't assisted them with their homework. Applying to colleges, seeing campuses, and dreaming about the future should have been all part of my final year of high school. Rather, it served as another reminder that the twins will always come first in my household. I had vivid memories of the evening. When my parents returned home, I was seated at the kitchen table surrounded by college brochures. When they were going to break terrible news to me, They always had that expression on their faces. Dad said, without quite looking me in the eye, "Erica, we need to talk about college." Mom interrupted in a matter-of-fact tone. "We've been examining our financial situation, and we just lack the funds to send you to college. The twins' future education must be funded entirely by our savings." The words struck me like a punch to the body. I sat there looking at the pamphlets, which now appeared to be making fun of me by promising me fresh starts and bright futures. With my voice barely above a whisper, I managed to reply, "But I've been working so hard. I get decent marks. Scholarships could be available to me. The choice is final." Mom interrupted. "The future of Lisa and Charlie must be considered." "How will my future turn out?" I fought back tears as I asked. Dad gave me an uncomfortable shoulder pat and remarked, "You're resourceful, honey. You'll find a solution." I listened to the twins giggling in their room down the hall while I laid in bed that night. They had been sneering at me entire supper, so I figured they already knew. Once more, I received nothing while others received everything. But that night, I had a sudden realization. I became angry, really angry, instead of crying. I began looking for a job the next day. I was able to secure an entry-level corporate employment in less than 2 weeks. Although it wasn't spectacular, I was able to rent a small apartment with the money I made. I moved out the day after I graduated. The ensuing years were challenging, but I put in a ton of effort. I volunteered for extra projects, took advantage of every training opportunity my firm had, and gradually moved up the corporate ladder. I didn't have a college degree, but I did have practical experience and a strong will to achieve. The twins, meanwhile, received their college education according to schedule. For their bills, lodging, and school, Mom and Dad found enough of money. They had nice degrees when they graduated, and their views about it were even finer. The irony is that Lisa is only able to work for 3 or 4 months at a time. She always has an explanation for why her skills aren't a good fit for any job. Charlie, too? He is employed as a warehouse supervisor, a position that most surely does not call for the pricey degree that our parents incurred debt for. At every family get-together, though, they love to mention their college credentials. With a sidelong glance she's mastered over the years, Lisa will begin, "Well, as someone with a degree in business administration." Not to be outdone, Charlie will add, back in college. As I sat there enjoying my wine, I consider that my wage exceeds the sum of their earnings. When they start boasting about their degrees while barely making ends meet, I sometimes struggle to keep my smile hidden beneath my glass. During my lunch break one day, I was aimlessly browsing through my feed when I came across a post from my cousin Sarah. She was grinning at the camera while wearing this stunning emerald green outfit. "Can't wait for Aunt Margaret's big celebration," the caption said. My sandwich was halfway to my lips when I froze. I had not heard anything about a party for my mother's birthday, which was still a few weeks away. Perhaps I was making assumptions. Maybe it was for something completely else. After a brief period of my fingers hovering over the computer, I wrote, "Beautiful dress. Why is there a celebration?" Sarah's answer arrived very instantly. "For the celebration of Aunt Margaret's 55th birthday. It will be incredible." "Why hadn't you begun organizing your wardrobe yet?" I felt as though I had been submerged in freezing water. As for oldest daughter, I was unaware that my mother was organizing a lavish birthday party. I contacted my mother as my hands were shaking, and I retrieved my phone contacts. On the 4th ring, she answered. "What is it, Eric?" "I'm currently rather busy." "Mom," I began, attempting to speak steadily. "I recently came into Sarah's article on your birthday celebration. What is the reason for my lack of hearing about it?" The person on the other end of the line paused, then let out a little sigh. Her voice had the same patronizing tone I had gotten accustomed to hearing when she spoke again. "Oh, that? I don't want you there, which is why I didn't invite you, Erica." In fact, I took the phone out of my ear and gazed at it for a while. Yes, I must have heard incorrectly. "You don't want me there? What do you mean? I am your daughter." "Yes, all right." She cleared her throat. The problem is that this is going to be a rather high-end event, Erica. Many influential individuals will be there, including members of the upper class, your father's business acquaintances, and my country club pals. I'd be ashamed to introduce you, to be honest. Erica, you don't hold a college degree. When someone asks what I do, what would I say? It would be awkward. My mother basically told me that I wasn't good enough to go to her birthday celebration while I sat there with my phone to my ear. So Charlie and Lisa are invited? I knew the answer when I asked. As if it were the most apparent thing in the world, she answered, "Of course they are. They have a college degree. They know how to act appropriately in a complex setting." I considered Charlie, who worked in a warehouse, and Lisa, who was unable to maintain a job for more than a few months. However, they were reportedly sophisticated enough for Mom's party because they had degrees. "I see," I answered, but my voice sounded odd and far away to me. "So you truly feel that way about me?" "Oh, Erica, stop being so dramatic. I didn't want to have this talk for just this reason. You turn everything into a scene every time. Although I had always known that my mother preferred the twins to me, this was different. This went beyond simple favoritism or careless disregard. My mother made it clear that she was embarrassed by me and that I wasn't deserving of appearing in public with the family. My mother's comments kept repeating in my mind, and I had a hard time sleeping that night. I had persuaded myself by morning that my father could not possibly concur with this. Despite his preference for the twins, he had always been more sensible. I had to hear his perspective. The following morning, when I was driving to my parents' house, I mentally practiced my response. I discovered Lisa's and Charlie's vehicles were in the driveway as I pulled in. Fantastic. For this battle, the entire family was present. With a frustrated expression on her face, Mom answered the door as if I were a door-to-door salesperson disturbing her day. "What are you doing here, Eric?" I pushed by her and entered the house, saying, "I need to talk to Dad." They were all in a living room, with the twins splayed out on the couch as if they owned it, and Dad in his favorite recliner. I began, my voice already trembling with emotion. "Dad, did Mom mention our talk from yesterday to you? What are your thoughts about it?" He didn't quite meet my eyes as he shuffled uneasily in his chair. "I believe your mother is correct. It would be preferable if you did not attend." I felt like I was slapped by the words. I glanced at these individuals who were meant to be my family members around the room. "All of you feel this way, obviously?" Lisa gave an eye roll. "Nobody wants you there." Charlie gave a nod. "For once, can't you just accept something without making it into a huge deal?" What I was hearing was unbelievable. "So none of you think it's improper to keep me out of a family gathering? Do you not see the injustice of this? My entire life has been like this. I'm relegated to the background while the twins are the favorites. I'm no longer even considered a member of this family. See?" Lisa sprang to her feet and pointed accusingly at me. "We don't want you there for just this reason. Erica, you're such a drama queen, constantly creating a scene and responding badly to everything. You always attempt to spoil positive things that happen to us with your attitude. The only reason you're envious is that Charlie and I succeeded while you—" "That's enough," I interrupted, raising my voice. "Have you achieved anything? Charlie works at a warehouse, and you can't keep a job for 3 months. You have merely created a mockery out of yourselves." "Erica." Mom let out a scream and clutched her pearls as if I had just made a terrible social blunder. Desperately looking for some indication of encouragement, I glanced to my father, but his expression had hardened. With firmness, he stated, "I think it's time for you to leave. We're done talking. Get out of our house right away." I slammed the door so forcefully that the windows rattled as I ran out of the home. I could see them through the living room window as I climbed into my car, undoubtedly already critiquing my dramatic departure, but I had lost interest in it. All of them had finally shown their genuine selves. Retaliation is said to be best served cold, but occasionally life presents you with a chance that is too good to refuse. My mother's birthday was 2 weeks away, and that's just what occurred. I was eating lunch at this small cafe downtown, which isn't where I usually go, but it was busy. I was waiting for my order when I looked around the room and noticed her. I could tell my mother had the ideal posture whenever she was seated in a corner booth, attempting to blend in with her surroundings by wearing a wide-brimmed hat. She wasn't by alone. I had never seen the man sitting across from her before. He was certainly not my father, neatly dressed in a business suit, and most likely in his early 40s. She chuckled as I watched him reach across the table and stroke her hand. In fact, I laughed like a schoolgirl. Before I knew what I was doing, I had my phone in my hand. I carefully angled the camera in their direction while seeming to be browsing social media. Click. One more touch. Click. A joint chuckle. Click. An hour or so later, they rose to depart. After a few seconds of waiting, I followed. I followed in my car, keeping a safe distance as they climbed into his, a slick black Mercedes. When the car came to a halt at a red light, I was able to capture many clear images of them sharing a passionate kiss while totally unaware of their surroundings. The Grand Plaza Hotel was reached by the Mercedes. As I parked across the street, I saw them enter with their hands held together like lovers. I captured everything on camera, including their arrival, their check-in process, and their inability to separate their hands while waiting for the elevator. When I got home, I began to make plans. I found the man's social media accounts by quickly searching for his license plate number online. He was easy to locate. Thompson, Richard, prosperous developer of real estate, downtown office, married, 3 children. I prepared everything over the course of the following several days. I first had the pictures printed in big format by a professional. The photo of them sharing a kiss in the car turned out quite nicely. I recorded the hotel entrance and a few additional clips that I was able to get on a USB disc. I purchased the most exquisite present box I could find. It was cream in color and had gold accent. I wrapped each picture in a silk ribbon after gently rolling it into a tube. Very sophisticated and elegant, exactly how my mother always demanded that everything be. The last touch was the greeting card. In my finest handwriting, I wrote Mr. Thompson's entire name, address, and a brief note. Thought you might want to know who your husband really is. I was certain that his wife would attend the party, so that one was for her. When discussing her sophisticated guest list, Mom had particularly brought her up. I wrapped a lovely golden ribbon around the box and closed it. Nobody would realize what was inside until it was too late, since it looked just like what you would expect from a costly birthday present. It was the day of my mother's birthday celebration. I had everything in its proper place. I knew they would be beginning to open presents at precisely 8:30 p.m., when the courier was supposed to bring the box. That night, I sat at my apartment, anxiously checking my phone every few minutes. Delivery was confirmed by the courier at 8:32 p.m. I had no choice but to wait now. There wasn't much waiting for me. My phone rang at 7 in the morning the next day. Sarah, my cousin, was so excited that she was almost out of breath. "Oh my God, Erica, you will not believe what happened at the party last night." She continued without waiting for my answer. It was completely crazy. Thus, everything was proceeding precisely as Aunt Margaret had desired. Perfectly and elegantly. Sarah paused to catch her breath. After that, they began to open presents. Aunt Margaret was raving over everything and reading each card out loud, making a huge show of it. She then arrived at this exquisite cream-colored box. I could see it exactly. My mother, the life of the party, surrounded by her carefully chosen guest list, wearing something elegant and costly. She discovered these rolled-up items wrapped with ribbons when she opened the package. As she untied the first one, she was genuinely remarking on how exquisitely they were presented. Sarah's voice rose in anticipation. Then she unrolled it, and Erica. I have never seen someone's face change color so fast. "What happened then?" Trying to seem unbiased, I asked. Everything exploded. She was seen kissing a man in the picture, and the man and his wife were also there at the celebration. After grabbing the picture, your dad began to unwrap the remaining rolls. They were all worse than the prior one. They were seen holding hands as they entered a hotel together, everything. As she went on, Sarah was almost ecstatic. Your dad had a breakdown. He lunged at the man across the table. There, between the cake and the champagne, they got into a brawl. Your mom was yelled at by the man's wife, who called her all sorts of derogatory names. She was flinging anything within her grasp, including dishes and glasses. She was yelling about their 20-year marriage, their 3 children, and how your mother was a homewrecker. Some of the guests tried to separate everyone, but it was complete chaos. I answered, "Sounds intense," with caution. Sarah's voice fell to a whisper of conspiracy. May I be truthful? Watching it was sort of incredible. This occurs when your mother has spent years lecturing everyone about appropriate conduct and family values, acting superior to the rest of us, and looking down on everyone. She genuinely chuckled at the hypocrisy. I know I probably shouldn't say this, but it couldn't have happened to a more deserving person. I reflected on my mother's meticulously orchestrated celebration, her meticulously manicured persona, and her priceless high society friends, all of them crumbling like the champagne glasses her lover's wife had tossed. Within a few days, I received word from a number of family members that Dad had left the house and was now lodging at a motel. He had previously discussed getting a divorce with his attorney. Dad had always been proud, perhaps to a fault, and he couldn't tolerate this type of public humiliation, so I wasn't shocked by his response. His phone call a few days later did catch me off guard. "Erica," he said, his voice sounding older and more unsure. "I have a question for you. All 3 of you will be subjected to DNA testing. You must provide me samples of your hair and saliva." A beat skipped in my chest. Maybe I should have expected this, but I hadn't. "You think we might not be." His words, "I don't know what to think anymore," were interrupted. "I'm not certain of anything after learning of your mother's actions. Are the samples available to me?" "Of course," I responded. "You can come by any time." That afternoon, he stopped by. He had never looked so dejected to me. His face was drawn and his shoulders drooped. This was a shattered guy attempting to put his life back together. He was not the strict, self-assured father I had recalled. I observed him gathering the samples with care and putting them in sterile containers. His hands were trembling a little. It was 2 weeks later. Despite my best efforts, I couldn't help but ponder about the exams. Then Dad phoned once more. "Can I come over?" He spoke in an odd, emotionally charged voice. "We need to talk." He was seated on my couch, gazing at his hands, 20 minutes later. "Finally, I got the results," he remarked. "I own you. Just you. They're not mine, the twins." "Your mother," he added, "become completely honest. Years ago, she had an affair. He refused to leave his family for her, even though he was the guy she loved. She therefore made do with having his kids." He stopped and raised his red-rimmed eyes to me. "He passed away a few years ago. I have severed my communication with the twins. Right now, I can't even look at them. The falsehoods are always there when I notice them. The treachery. After all those years of special treatment and ongoing partiality, the pieces were finally coming together." Dad went on in a resentful tone. "She loved him, and she loved his children. But she never really loved me and you." With genuine anguish in his eyes, he gazed at me. "She pushed you away and made you feel alienated in your own house because you were and I let her do it, God, Erica. I allowed her to make me hostile toward my only biological kid." He grabbed for my hand, then pulled away. "I am aware that I am not deserving of your pardon. You had a horrible father in me. However, I would like to establish a connection with my daughter if you would allow me to try. My actual daughter." I had a complex range of feelings as I looked at my father, a shattered man. Wrath, sadness, satisfaction, and optimism. "I'll think about it," I eventually responded. At the time, that was all I had to offer. On a Tuesday afternoon, my mother called. Her number appeared on my phone when I was in the middle of a business meeting. Excusing myself, I went outside to accept it. She said, "I know it was you. without introducing herself. I could sense the rage under her cool, controlled speech. The pictures, the birthday present, everything. It was you. I didn't think twice. Yes, it was. Her voice lost its control. How dare you humiliate me like that in front of everyone? You want to talk about humiliation? It was satisfying to chuckle. What if I served as your personal servant my whole childhood? Imagine being informed that since I didn't have a college degree, I wasn't worthy of attending your birthday celebration. That's different. No, Mother, nothing has changed. Throughout my life, you purposefully denigrated me. Dad was against me because of you. The twins turned against me because of you. You gave me the impression that I wasn't worthy of belonging to this family. Guess what, though? As it happens, the only person who truly belongs in it is myself. The other end of the line was silent for a long time. She eventually responded, "You've ruined everything," in a shaky voice. Mother, no. Everything was damaged by you. I just revealed the reality. Perhaps you'll recall your own behavior the next time you're giving someone a morals or appropriate behavior lecture. Before she could answer, I hung up. In the months that followed, our family underwent significant transformation. Dad's divorce was completed in a flash. He had a strong case and great attorneys. Mother attempted to obtain a large payment, but she had little power because of the DNA test findings and the proof of her adultery. She received a little financial settlement in the end, far less than the affluent divorce lifestyle she had most likely dreamed of. She had moved to another city when I last heard from her. As far as I was concerned, good riddance. Surprisingly, the majority of our relatives appeared to be happy with the outcome, despite the fact that the family rumor mill was obviously working overtime. During a coffee date, my Aunt Jane informed me, "Your mother had it coming." As though she were superior to the rest of us, she was always glaring down her nose at everyone. Did you know that she once lectured me about how I was parenting my children incorrectly for the whole Christmas dinner? While she was lecturing about family values, Miss High and Down herself, she giggled and shook her head. Regarding Dad, we're gradually reestablishing our relationship. Not the shadow of our previous one, but a genuine one this time. I've brought him over for dinner a couple of times, and he calls frequently. I see him beginning to recover, but he's still having trouble dealing with all that occurred. He occasionally even grins once more. The twins? Since everything came to light, I haven't spoken to them. I banned their numbers after they made a few first attempts to contact. What could they say to compensate for all the abuse they had endured? It might be referred to as retaliation. I refer to it as justice. In order to portray herself as a model of morality and treat me like a second-class citizen inside my own family, my mother spent years creating a flawless facade. I only revealed her true self to everyone.